All right, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Marketplace with me, Jimmy Mbogo. And today, this morning, we just want to have a conversation around the key considerations that you need to make before making personal investment. And to help me with that conversation this morning, I'm joined by Waithaka Gatumia, who is the CEO, Centurion. Waithaka, thank you so much for making time to speak to us.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, so I know one of the key considerations that we attempted to make when making investment is, what is my financial goals? So why is that so important before making these investments?
In fact, it's not just one of the considerations, it's the only one. When you're considering which investment to make, the only thing that you need to first, in fact, that's, I should not say only, sorry, it's first. The first consideration is, what is the goal? What is the outcome? Because if you understand the outcome that you're aiming for, then you will select the right investment to give you that outcome.
Yeah.
So a very simple example is this. If I'm saving for school fees for the next term, which is maybe 2 or 3 months away, then a wonderful investment is a savings account.
Yeah.
But if I'm saving for my children to go to university, which is 10 years away, then a savings account is one of the worst investments. Why? Because in a savings account, you're not getting much interest, and many times inflation outstrips the interest that you're earning in a savings account.
Yeah.
So for long-term investments, like for university, you want high growth. And so because I know it's university, then I choose an investment matching that. If I know it's in the next few weeks, few months like this, then a savings account is sufficient.
Yeah.
So the goal actually determines the investment that you're going to make.
All right, because again, the other thing that a lot of our listeners would want to know, how do I what metrics do I use to test my risk tolerance?
So this is one of the big mysteries and myths of the investment world. Apparently, that you are supposed to invest according to your risk tolerance. In fact, people ask you, what's your risk appetite? I dislike that deeply. Because if you go according to your feelings and your risk appetite, then you'll make mistakes often. You go according, again, to the outcomes that you're aiming.
Yeah.
So based on your outcomes, you select investments with the right potential return to match the goal that you have. So watch this. Why I said school fees for the short term is because with school fees for the short term, what's my goal? I need security, which means it's safe. That's why a bank savings account is good. It's safe. And when I need it, I can access it. So my goal is security and access. Now, when we talk about school fees for university, one of those good universities you want to send your children to, that's 10 years out. You want your money to be growing faster. Therefore, you need a higher rate of return. Now, the only places that you can find higher rates of return are investments that have higher risk. So you cannot say, I'm not going to invest where there's higher risk because I don't like risk. No, everything in life has risk.
Yeah.
But you're selecting investments where you're getting the highest potential return. Then when you've selected them, out of them, you try and reduce the risk. That's the key part. So we're not trying to say here, please, no one is coming here to say, just throw every caution to the wind, invest in any risky affair that's coming because they're promising high returns. No. But we're saying you look at the rate of return, especially for long-term investments, and you select based on the rate of return, followed by mitigation against risk, which means now, if you know more about the investment, if you understand it, then you reduce the risk. If you go through accredited and investment vehicles that have oversight, like by the CMA or by the central bank, that they have that oversight, then you're able to reduce the risk.
Yeah.
If you go with investors who have a history of good investments, then again, what do? Reduce the risk.
Yeah.
But you cannot start off by saying, I'm not going to invest because there's risk. That's a big mistake.
All right, because again, there's the question of the role of the macroeconomic environment and how much of an impact does that have on the kind of investment that you make?
Here's the truth of the matter. All investments are affected by the macroeconomic environment that you're facing. I think a good example is what Kenya went through a couple of months ago with the dollar fluctuations. And you remember how high the dollar was, which affects imports, which affects ability to the purchase costs, and it affected inflation, all these different factors.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is an effect. But for us, for the common mwananchi, the biggest issue that we are facing is the simple fact that we are not investing. So I think that's the kind of discussion that you want to have with somebody who has been faithful, who has been continuously investing over a period of time. They have become familiar and good at the investments. And in that environment is when now you begin to think, okay, so will I select this unit trust versus this one, or will I go into real estate versus this? Because of that macroeconomic effect, and also because you have sufficient capital to begin to have that discussion.
Yeah.
But for most of us, and for me, for many years in my life, you see, when I come to speak, I have to talk about things that are real. If in many years in my life, I was not investing sufficiently even to be having those discussions.
Okay.
So the issue is to start, select, and begin. And the thing about it is, for most people, if you're starting out, please don't beat yourself. If you're starting on something new, you're not going to be good at it. And the only way to become good at something is through what? Practice. And so even with investment, practice. And with practice, that means that you don't throw all your eggs, again, I'm using so many metaphors, into one basket.
Yeah.
You put a small amount, see how that works, be faithful with that small amount, and then you begin to put more and more and more, and you get better with it over time.
All right, because I'm sure this is a question that a lot of us contend with, excuse me, and that is the question of how do I balance my liquidity needs against my investments?
With what is called simply a plan. Here's the thing. Many of us don't actually have a plan. And a financial plan is called a budget. Now, many of us, our budget is where? In our head. In fact, I was talking to some of the guys here in the studio, and that's one of, you know the budget in your head, and that budget tells you many lies. The only things that you know in your head are the things that you have been told. What your landlord told you to pay, what the bank told you to pay, what the school told you. Those are the ones you know. Where the rest of your money goes, there is usually a lot of fuzz. It is unclear where your money goes. And so if you don't have that control, then it is very difficult for you to begin to make a plan. So when you talk about managing liquidity, now you see you're using difficult terms. Liquidity is how much cash do you have, cash money in your pocket, and how much are you putting towards investments. So how do you balance that? It's based on, first of all, awareness. How much money do you make? How much money do you actually use? Not what you think, not what you imagine, but what you actually use. Most people who think about their groceries, they think about that major shopping that you do, in the supermarket once a month, and that's your budget for groceries. If you add all the times you stop for milk and bread on the way home, your budget doubles. So if you don't know the truth about it, then you can't make a decision. After that, so you've talked about awareness, then it's about taking control and then setting the goals that we said. And goals don't have to be complex. I think right now we are about to watch the Safari Rally. Imagine it'll be back next year. Set that as a goal and say, I want to go to Naivasha debt-free. I want to go and watch those cars in a nice hotel debt-free. That's a goal. And then you say, okay, how much do I need to save every month between now and 2025 to enjoy? That's how you do it.
All right, can you talk about how you assess regularly and review? So how often should I review my investments?
Wow. So it's dependent on the type of investment. So I'll go back to the simple ones that we were discussing here. My savings account, I don't need to go checking it every single month. The terms are the same. Unless there's anything major going on at the bank or the SACCO, the terms are the same. So my awareness, I don't need to go there every single month. However, for example, if you're investing in business through the stock market, for example, then it's really good to have like a daily awareness of what's happening in that industry. And most of us will get that information through the newspapers, through the media like yourselves, and picking that up and just seeing what's going on in the industry, just a general awareness. And that's the one thing I must applaud Kenyans for. Kenyans have awareness of especially the political environment that is there. And because of that, we pay attention to the news. We get a little bit of the business environment that is there. And that's really positive. But not just to know for the sake of knowing, but knowing for the sake of making decisions.
All right. So again, in terms of balancing my portfolio, just looking at the short-term goals and the long-term goals, how do I consider which ones to put more money in and which ones to invest slowly over time?
I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's really about where's the goal? What's the outcome that you're looking for? And the truth of the matter is that most of the time, our long-term goals, like education for our children, happy retirement, home ownership, if you want to own a home, all those tend to have a large amount that is required over a longer period of time. And so what we do, for example, in the Centonomy classes is that we calculate, and we help you to calculate. We give you the tools. It's simple mathematics. We help you to calculate what is the outcome that you're aiming for. Then you simply do what? Work backwards and say, how much do I need to be investing daily, weekly, monthly, yearly to achieve that goal in the next 5, 10, 15 years? And we make that a real number based on inflation and the different factors that are there. So the allocation is based on what? On your goals. However, the selection of the investments now is also a part of the wisdom that we have. Because there is risk in any... If anyone comes and sits here and tells you this is a risk-free investment, please run away immediately, because that guy is lying to you. There is no investment with zero risk. It's just there's a varying amount of risk in each. So if you want one of the other mitigations against risk, it is, and when I say to mitigate, is to balance so that you're not getting all the risk on your side. It means that you're going to spread your investment. So if I go to the stock market, for example, and I buy shares, then I don't want to buy shares in just one company. I want to buy in multiple companies. Now, how do I diversify even further? I don't just now want multiple companies. I want multiple industries. So, for example, if I only have shares in the banks, because the banks are, I mean, they're the blue chip companies, part of the blue chip companies that are on the stock exchange. If I just buy, you know, I have ABSA, I have Equity, I have Stanchart, whichever ones they are. Now I'm all in the banking industry. If anything happens to the banking industry, even if I have multiple shares, then I'm at high risk. But if I go to a bank, I get a technology company, I get an agricultural company, I have now done what? Diversified my risk. Same thing even with real estate. Kenyans love real estate. Don't buy all your land in one place. You know, buy in different places so that if something happens in that one area, then you're not at high risk. Don't buy just one big rental property. Because if you don't have a tenant, no cash.
There's no cash. So, Mr. Wadhaka, and I know probably this is going to be our last question. There is the question of a majority of Kenyans in terms of the earning bracket are between 0 to 100,000 Kenya shillings. So what percentage of my earnings should I put in investment?
I dislike the percentage question, because the percentage question does not take into account your current position. If I come and tell somebody who is not able to buy food in the day, please save 10% of your food, and of your money, and their children are hungry, I'm lying to them. It's the same way if I come to that young guy who's got his first job, it's a good paying job, he has no responsibilities, and I tell him save 10% of your income. I'm also lying to him. He should save more. So the plan is what guides the amount that you save and invest towards your goals. If you don't have a goal, you cannot be able to invest. I hope my repetition has helped someone to hear that.
All right, Mr. Wadhaka, thank you so much for making time to speak to us on this matter. And of course, we look forward to having more conversation around this and just to help you, our listeners, understand where to put your money and what are some of the metrics to use while making this investment. That has been our time on Marketplace this Wednesday. Let's do this again, same time, same place next week.